Welcome to Sales is Not a Dirty Word, the podcast that shows you how to convert 8 out of 10 sales conversations without acting like a douchebag. I'm your host, innovative sales coach Alicia Barr, the creator of the Black Sheep Sales Method. Because if it's a fit, it's a fact, and there's no selling involved. If you're a service provider selling your own service and you're ready to sell differently than the mainstream status quo and win more sales without pressure, pitching, or pretending to be someone else, then this is for you. If you want to know more about the Black Sheep Sales Method, then go to aliciabarr.com. So today I had a situation with a client that inspired me to bring a topic that is so important out there for all my people pleasers. And for people who just generally don't feel super comfortable managing someone's expectations if it's not what they want to hear. So, a lot of times people will ask for things, and just by asking, a people pleaser will think, "Oh god, I have to do that for them," right? Because they asked. And so they'll say, "Sure," even though it's not in their scope of work or it's something they're not comfortable with or whatever. And so the client has no idea that that's not something that you usually do. If you're going to do that, you need to, at a minimum, explain, well, usually I don't do that, but I'll make an exception for you. Or usually I only have a 1 month trial period, but I'm going to extend yours 3 months. And they need to have the context for knowing that you've given them something special. So my client didn't do this up front. She gave somebody a special rate. And the person came back complaining about budget. And she was like, "I gave you a special rate." And he was like, "Well, I didn't know that." And if she had told him that at the beginning, it probably would have stopped him from coming back and complaining about budget because she was looking for a hire for him to bring on some editor support, right? And so because that conversation didn't happen at the end, she was like, "Well, it's fine. I mean, we're doing it anyway. You just got a great deal and it's fine. And we did this because you were going to have multiple hires," and all of this stuff that was basically an assumption. And this happens all the time too, where people assume, "Oh, there's potential here for multiple hires, for bigger deals, for longer contracts, for getting into other departments, for getting into sister companies or whatever." And so people will charge something lower on the front end because of the potential return on the back end. However, that's based on potential. You are, and this is something that I had very direct experience with multiple times. Like as a sales strategist, it's very common for people to say, "Well, what if you get a percentage of the sales," right? And it sounds really attractive, except 30% of $0 is zero. And there's a lot of uncontrollable variables in most situations. So when you're thinking about, "Oh, this could lead to something long term," you at least need to talk it through with the person. And overall, I would say don't do it. Do not make a deal based on potential. Make a deal based on what is in front of your face, the situation that you're in now. And I would charge more on the front end. That's what I do now. So I'm going to do this. And if we reach these milestones, then there will be that relief on the back end. Because if you incentivize the front end and offer something lower, what is their reason to push for whatever that potential is for you? Right? They're just like, this is the way it is. This is the value they've associated with it. They don't have the context for knowing what you usually charge unless you tell them. And if you're going to make a deal based on potential and incentivize the front end, they're less incentivized to fulfill the potential that you're talking about. So it can be very tempting to be a people pleaser and say, "Oh yeah, I can do all of those things. I can, paint rainbows and hang moons for you and for a really affordable price." But you are going to lose that client because you're overpromising something that's not realistic, or you're doing it for an amount of money that's going to make you resentful in the long term. Because when your client doesn't know that you're doing something out of scope or doing something that's an exception for them, they just keep asking for it. And you can't blame them. You would do the same thing. You'd be like, oh, this is something that my client does. I have another client who does operations work for people, and they'll ask her to do things that have nothing to do with operations, and she'll do them. And so they continue to ask. So when somebody reaches out and asks you to do something that's out of scope, which is something that happened to me a lot when I had a marketing agency, because people get confused about like what is within the scope of contract. So in my contracts, I would always be very, very clear. If anything is out of scope, the investment for that will be discussed at that time. And when they ask me to do something out of scope, you have a few options. Number one, if it's something you can do and it's pretty easy for you and whatever, you can say, usually I would say, usually this is not included, but I'm going to do this for you this time. And moving forward, it'll be this much. So they know they got something special. And the law of reciprocity kicks in, right? People feel more motivated to get you back, to appreciate you, to do something in exchange for you, right? The other option is to let them know, oh, yeah, that's actually not included. I can do it. It'll be this much. Let me know if that's something you want me to take care of. And number three is saying, that's actually not something we provide. However, I know people who can do that. Do you want me to link you up with them? So having boundaries might feel scary, and everybody knows that in theory they're good. I hope it makes a difference to envision what happens when you don't have boundaries, because you're going to lose the client and you're going to lose money. So it's not just like, oh, I should have boundaries because self-care and self-respect. No, if your goal is revenue and clients, then you need to have boundaries. So I hope that that gives you like, because a lot of people are happy with compromising themselves, their time, their energy, which of course is a whole nother, thing that shouldn't be something that's okay. But some people find it more motivating to say, oh, this is going to cost me money and stress later, or a client, then they're more motivated to do it. So it's a managing of expectations before the sales conversation and during the relationship. It's a consistent managing of expectations. So when my client was talking to this person who was complaining about budget, even though they had gotten this special rate, she kept saying things like, well, we'll just bump up your trial period. Well, we'll just da 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 da. But she wasn't giving him the context for what it usually was. So he had no frame of reference. Usually the trial period's only a month. We'll bump it up to 3 months for you. So he can have that frame of reference, right? Usually there's a placement fee of $2,000. We'll waive that for you in this scenario. And if you're going to pursue something that has more potential on the back end and therefore offer an incentivized price, put it in a contract. Like, we're doing this because the next phase is to take over hiring for these departments, and have them sign it. At least make it an official thing instead of just a hope and a wish and a prayer, because you're betting on a fantasy. You're betting on air, and you want it to be black and white, clear and concrete. So really, this kind of transparency and clarity is going to make a client trust you more, respect you more, want to work with you more, want to refer you more. So if you can internally adjust to upfront letting people know, okay, this is what's included. If you need this other stuff, I'm not your person, or that will be an additional investment. Is that something you need? Like, for example, with my operations person, I'm the person who helps people get their systems in line. The reason they're so confused about it is she jumps into their day-to-day when she first starts working with them to understand what their real business looks like, not like in theory, but in practice, right? And because she starts in the day-to-day, they think that she stays in the day-to-day, and she doesn't. So we adjusted her communication to say up front, I'm in there on the day-to-day to get a good understanding of your business so I can implement systems that your team will actually use, because I know them and I know the personalities involved and I know the tasks involved firsthand, which is going to give me a better understanding. However, after the first month, I'm no longer in the day-to-day. So do you have somebody who can support you in day-to-day? Because I have had the experience where some people confuse me for an executive assistant, and that is not what I do. And I understand why they're confused about it, because I get so into their business the first month so I can provide the best solution the fastest. And I just want to, take care of that up front. Is that something you need? Let's talk about it so that I can put you in touch with the right person. And then when that person comes around and says something or asks for something, that foundation has already been laid and it's a lot less awkward. So I hope this resonates with some of you in a way that you feel like you can implement and you can really take action on and feel good about, and know that it's going to, in the end, actually make the client like you way more and spend more money with you, which a people pleaser's biggest fear is that they're going to be upset that I can't do all the things that they want and they're going to leave, right? When actually the opposite of that happens. And if they are somebody that on the front end is like, oh, I don't like that and I'm going to leave, that is not a client you want. They would just continue sucking the life out of you until there was nothing left. You do not want somebody like that who's trying to get as much as they can for as little money as possible. It ends up costing you more money, time, and energy in the long run because you can't spend it with clients who are paying you what you're worth and appreciating and respecting what you do. So that's another lesson that a lot of people have to learn, that some money is not better than no money. And you can tell somebody that, but they just have to experience the nightmare client experience themselves, probably at least 3 times, and then they won't do that anymore. So this is kind of an extension of that, right? The fitting and the not fitting, knowing who's a fit and knowing who's not a fit. And part of that fit is what expectations they're okay with and communicating that up front and not bending those for somebody to keep the deal, because you're going to end up with a bunch of awkward stuff on the back end. So I hope that this resonates for you guys. And, of course, this is something that I do with my clients all the time. I identify these things just like with my operations client. What are these clients that you're not having a good experience with, that aren't getting the result or that are complaining about the result? And they let me know, and I'm able to craft questions and explanations on the front end that make that problem completely disappear. And I also can give you wording for when it happens during the client relationship so that you can respectfully and kindly draw boundaries. So if that's something that you are struggling with at the moment, please book a sales level up call and we can script it out for you right there in that conversation. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.